A song isn't about the perfection of all the parts, but the perfection of how all the parts fit together. Let's talk about it. So the main idea here is essentially what I consider my 8th law of songwriting, which says that perfectly cohesive parts beat perfect parts. Let's flesh this idea out with other art forms other than songwriting to start to help make this a little clearer. And let's actually start with a video game in Minecraft, which has objectively terrible graphics, or at least not good graphics, and it doesn't have a storyline, which seemingly would make the game not very good, because one of the factors of what makes a great game, one would think, is surely the graphics, how good it looks, and also how good the story is. But yet this is considered one of the greatest games ever, and people are still obsessively playing it, what, 20 years later? Longer? I don't even know. A very long time later. And that's because the synergy of all the parts of this game, and I can't believe I just used the word synergy, I hate myself for it too, okay? I hate myself for it too, but it is the right word for this. That is what makes that game great, not the sum of the individual parts, because if you summed up the individual parts, you wouldn't arrive at that being a great game. But all the parts work so well together in the open-endedness and how you can just design anything. And it's sort of like if just infinite Lego creativity became a video game in a way. Or for another example, would anybody debate that the setting of Lord of the Rings is much cooler and more interesting than the setting of The Office? Probably not. But when it comes to The Office, even though the setting is really dreary and drab and just beige and gray and it's nothing interesting, do you think The Office would become a better show if it took place in Middle-earth? Almost certainly not. A part of what makes The Office great is its drab setting and how it's sort of the light of comedy in the dreary day-to-day that a lot of us experience with office work. And this is with setting being normally an important element to how great a story or a movie is. Setting, characters, plot, these are important elements. And yet a seemingly worse setting for The Office actually makes it a better show. So clearly greatness in art isn't just the sum of the different parts of what can be great within art. Your song is not a sum of its parts in that is the chord progression a 10 out of 10, and are the lyrics a 10 out of 10, and is the melody a 10 out of 10, which even that is a bit of an oversimplification. We could talk about hooks and other things as well. But if we just take those 3 parts, even that is not the case. It's not the case that if you write a more advanced or better chord progression for your song, it will necessarily be better for your song or make your song better. As I've said before, some songs need to have complexity and some songs need to be more simple. I am not somebody that believes that simple is good. I think that's super reductive and just not true at all. It's one of those like, yeah, okay, so Bohemian Rhapsody isn't good because simple is good and that's not a very simple song. Simple is good, total lie. But complex is good is also a lie. It should be whatever the song needs. Some songs need to be simple to be great, and other songs need to be more complex to be great. And a lot of songs probably need to be somewhere in the middle to be great. So it's more about the synergy of the parts than it is about the individual parts and how great they all are on their own. But once again, don't take my word for it. Let's go to some quotes. And our first quote is coming from James Taylor, who says, "You don't need every chord or lyric to be flawless. It's how they weave together that makes the song feel whole and alive." Or Kurt Cobain of Nirvana, "A song doesn't need perfect notes or polished production. It's about the pieces, riffs, words, energy clicking together to hit you in the gut." Or Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel, "The magic in a song isn't in perfect parts. It's how the melody, words, and rhythm become one thing stronger than any piece alone." Or Michael Stipe of REM, who says, "A song's power comes when every piece, chords, vocals, even mistakes, works for the same goal. That's what makes it feel like more than music." Or Marco Seresto from one of my favorite bands, Poets of the Fall, who you totally should check out because they're, I think, really popular in Europe, but nobody knows them here, but they're really awesome. But anyway, he says, "A song doesn't need flawless pieces. It needs them to sing together. When they do, it's more than music, it's a living thing." So how do we practically apply this to our own songwriting? I think it's very simple. Instead of focusing on how good each part of our song is by itself, though there is value to that, by the way, we should mostly focus on how well that fits into the whole. So it's less about, is this chord progression good? And it's more about, is this chord progression good or perfect for the song that it's in? Because there might be a song where just a 1-5-6-4 chord progression the whole song, or maybe even just a 2 chord progression going the whole song is actually what is best for that song. And you might have another song that honestly it goes into crazy borrowed chords and you have all sorts of added notes to the chords and you're always using inversions, and maybe even you have moments where you go into chromaticism and you're not even really doing borrowed chords anymore, but it's sort of vague what key your song is in. That might be right for another song. And the same thing is going to be true with melody and lyrics as well. Maybe some songs need to have very simple lyrics and other songs need to have much more poetic lyrics that are maybe a little harder to understand but more rewarding because there's more depth to them if somebody takes the time to sink their teeth into it. Your focus should be, how do I make this song as good as it can be, rather than how do I make this chord progression as good as it can be, agnostic of the rest of the song. It's more about how all the pieces fit together to tell one story or to be one song. You want to write the greatest song you can, not necessarily the greatest chord progression you can, or the greatest hook, or the greatest melody, or the greatest lyrics. Though, of course, those things are good too. So if we were to wrap this up in one clean quote, it would be that cohesion beats perfection every time. You want to have something that's perfectly cohesive more than you want something that has perfect parts. And if you want some help with songwriting, be sure to check out my free guide breaking down 20 different ways to start writing a song, because for a lot of people, starting a song can be rough and they may find themselves sort of stuck where they're like, man, I keep coming up with song ideas, but they all kind of lead me down a dead-end path. A lot of times I think that's because we come up with too few types of ideas. Maybe all of our song starter ideas or song seeds are chord progressions, which is fine. You can start with a chord progression. That's a perfectly valid way to start a song. Even a good way when you are early on in your songwriting journey. But that's not the only way, and you may be more inspired by starting your song with a bass line or a piano hook, or starting with a cool song title, and then you reverse engineer, what does a song called that seem like it would be about? There's so many different ways to start a song that might resonate with you and make it more easy for you to actually finish the song in a cohesive manner so that you're proud of it at the end of the day. So be sure to check that out. songwritertheory.com/free guide. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. Talk to you in the next one.